So in this point we're going to recall some properties related to the model and to the relation with the data read from a text file. As we said, um, it calls from the second column to the last column. And so, for example, the second column in this file is external temperature, right? Which it's going to be if we come here, yes. So it comes here, and this is 1. So when we make a link, we have to specify which e parentheses number it is. And in this case, even if this is the second column, we specify of the E1. All right. And the last element here, it was 18, which is this is a electric supply to this capacity, and this is 18. Okay, this is the last one, and which is 18 here. But if we come again, this starts from the second column to the 19th column. So there is a offset of 1 step between the columns we're using here and what we have to use when we make the link between combi table and the outlets. Okay, that's one thing. The second thing I want to show you is how to create elements in OpenModelica which will permit to make a link with the combined tables, which permits to introduce data from a text file. So to give an example, let's create a function, whatever, and let's introduce our resistance. Okay, thermal resistance. So let's come here, thermal heat transfer components, thermal resistor. Okay, so here we introduce a thermal resistor, and if we try to put a value for the value of the resistance, we can only put a constant value, okay, which is 5, I don't know. If we see the equation associated to this is really simple. But when we want to make a link between, for example, combined table and this. So let's say we want this resistance to change over time. I want to make a link, but we can't because this is gonna give an error. For example, let's say that we introduce one column here, but this is incorrect. It's gonna give a problem because here we have to put temperature, not a heat flux, or not a. This node here is for temperature difference, and here we're introducing data, and it's not going to come to the resistance, but it's going to come to the temperature itself. So there is no mean, and this is not right. There's no mean to connect combined table to the resistance value by the interface, graphical interface. There's no meaning. But let's say we have a resistance value that changes over time, and it's in the text file, and we want to specify that this resistance changing over time is going to be the resistance here. So there is a way to do it, at least at what I've found, and it is that you have to create yourself the same element. So let's erase this, and you have to create this same element yourself. So for example, if we explore this, here we're gonna see all the equations that are related to this resistance, etc. Okay, and what I do is I create the same thing, but with the elements that are also in Modelica. After all the complex elements in Modelica are composed by the simplest elements. So for example, the thermal resistor is the ports, and the equation is defined here, no, with extents and with extents which are predefined equations and a simple equation. But what I do here is I construct this resistance, and I'm going to specify in this new component that I'm creating the value array that is going to be a variable. Okay, and I specify all the elements again. I specify the equations that are going to be equivalent to this, with the difference that in this case the resistance it's a variable that I can link with a text file for boundary conditions or changing conditions over time, and here it's not possible. So once it's done, it's equivalent resistance. Just that here, double click left. This is the R value is not specified as constant. It's a variable of the model, and here we can specify. So what's the next step? For example, in this model, I have this element, the resistance, and I have to say that this value is changing over time, and the value of this resistance is given by an outlet of the combit time table. So what I do is I come to the code here, and by default, OpenModelica what it does is to make connections, and these are equations. But what we can do, and what I do here, is that in this equation I'm going to um, again here I'm connecting the extremes of this resistance to its corresponding temperature, but the resistance value is a variable, and not giving a value predefined as here. For example, here I have a value and I say the resistance value is this one, but here I don't have a value for the resistance, so I need one equation that is going to permit to have the value of this resistance, and it's what I do here. I come to this equation, and then I add an additional equation that's going to permit to have the value of this resistance, and this equation is going to consider an outlet of the combit time table and another parameters that I'm defining. So in this way I can link a combit time table outlet which is dependent of time with a value of this resistance itself, because it's needed for solving the equations, and it's going to be this one here, which is a air vent mech, which is here. So this is the way how you can link a combined table outlet to any element. You have to construct the element itself and specifies the variable that you need as variables, so you can make the link. So to continue with these examples, here I have another file, another OpenModelica file, and here I have some, in the same way, some equations that I have added in order to link some elements of the model directly to combine table outlets. For example, if I come here and I have, for example, this heat flux terminal, here I can see that there is a link between the entrance of this heat flux inlet and combine table outlet E5, and it is no need to put an additional equation because the link is done directly for combine table to this. But if I have some elements that needs to be modified, and I want to also parameterize some parameters in the model. For example, here I have a heat flux related to solar energy, and I see that differently from this, here there is not a link between combine table and this. And this is why, because this element, which is called Q's sol apps may 1, is going to be specified here. And if we go to the equation section, here we have the element Q sol apps may 1 point Q flow, which is the element that I want to specify. It's equal to the combine table E8 multiplied by a coefficient. And this, when I define in this way, that I can work also on this coefficient. But I don't need to make a link between combine table and this. I do it in this equation. And this element, a coefficient related to solar absorptivity, is going to be here. Sorry, here. Coefficient absol me, which is also not linked to anything, but it's just a value that I'm giving, and coef absol me is going to be specified 1k, which is the value here. So in this way, in general, we can link any temporal data boundary condition or any time dependent parameter behavior which is given by combine table. We can link that information to any element in the OpenModelica, but the condition sometimes is going to be to create the element or just work in the equation section in the code. That's it. Hope it helps.